You're on the air with Florenza, your podcast destination for authentic conversations with a twist. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and join me on this unique literary journey. Cheers!
Today on the Air with Florenza, Florenza is joined by the brilliant Michelle Gable, New York Times bestselling author known for her lush historical fiction and captivating dual timelines. Her latest novel, Darling Beast, is a sweeping tale set in the 1930s Hollywood that will pull you into a world of glamour, secrets, and survival. Let's dive into the mystery behind the golden age of film and the women who dared to shape it. Put your hands together and welcome Michelle to the show. Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining me on this episode of On the Air with Florenza, where we're going to discuss your newest book, Darling Beast. And I have so many questions, like I really do. But before we get into any of that, you said that you have watched a few of my shows and you're used to all the drinking and the shenanigans that take place. So we're going to toast to a fantastic show. What do you have? Oh, are
I
you?
just have water, but I'm on the West Coast, so it's still pretty early here for me.
I've had people tell me it's water only to confess later that it was really vodka, but I'll go
Oh,
with
I would
you.
tell you.
Look, I'll go with you. It's working hours. So, yeah, I'm sipping on pink margarita, but as I said, you're like my fifth interview for today, and it's been a whole lot of drinking going on. So, boys and girls, if I start to slur, it's not a stroke. It's tequila. Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, I really need to start doing pre-mix because I don't know how to mix properly. Uh, yes, we're going to dive into your book and a little bit more about who you are. Now, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, Michelle, and tell us what you hope the reader walks away with having read Darling Beast.
Okay, so first, I'm Michelle, and this is my eighth book, and all my seven prior books are historical fiction. So this is my first, and this is my
That cover
first.
is great.
Yeah, isn't it the best cover? I mean, when they showed this to me, I was like, perfect, no notes. It's absolutely perfect. And I even got them to I have pet Jindos, which is a type of dog. I even got them to put a Jindo on the cover. So
Nice.
I feel like I really made it that I could get a Jindo. And I was sending them inspo pics of the Jindo. It needs to look like this. So Darling Beast is about the Gunn family, as you said, and they're quite dysfunctional. The kids are all in their 20s. The oldest is about 30. And so they're adult kids, but they're still very much don't act like adults all the time, let's
Uh-huh.
just say. And their father has a big scandal and he loses his business. He was a billionaire. And then he decides, okay, I'm going to remake myself as a politician. I'm going to run for office. And they all think this is a horrible idea. But he's like, okay, well, you're cut off whatever money we still have left if you don't help me. So they all, one by one, help. And they all have their own issues to deal with and why they don't want to help or why they do want to help. Talia is really the only one, the oldest sister, who wants to help. And Gabby, everything is normal about this world. It's a world that you and I live in, except for Gabby has a rare condition, quote unquote, that I made up, where, as you alluded to, every time something bad's going to happen or she's about to make a bad decision, a random animal appears.
Uh-huh.
So she manifests these animals, and it's usually something very exotic, and she has to get rid of it, but she cares about that. She doesn't want to just, shoot it or something. She wants, it's very hard to find a flamingo rescue or other things like that. So she's trying to deal with that. And, it is kind of a metaphor, like you can tamp down your problems, but, they're going to keep showing up until you learn to deal with them. And I just like the family dynamics. I also have two girls and a boy in my family, and
Uh-huh.
it's not about us, but
Yeah.
I like that dynamic. And then just that, the overall theme of like forgiving your family members and also trying to shed narratives that in your families, we all have these narratives
Mhm,
that we have of
mhm.
each other, or when you've taken on yourself. I'm the kid that does this. I'm the,
Yeah.
and figuring out how to shed those narratives.
Yeah. So when I was looking up the syndrome, and I want to make sure that I am pronouncing this right because I put it everywhere, over here, over here, over here. So it's portum bestia.
Yeah, syndrome. Bestia
It,
syndrome.
now, reading it, I actually thought this was a real, like, on the ICD-10, or is it 11 now? Right. So I am like looking it up, and when I ask AI, i.e. Google, about
Yeah.
it, and it says that this is the brilliant imagining of Michelle Gable from
Oh,
her
that's funny.
book.
That's hilarious. Okay.
So
Yeah, I
AI
made it
gave
up.
you
I thought it was
all.
fun. Well, I'm glad they didn't lie about it and say, somebody else came up with it or is a real thing.
So we're going to come back to that because I have some more questions about the syndrome itself. Darling Beast is described as, and I think I'm pronouncing this right. Well, if I'm not, it's a great reason to cuss. Schitt's Creek meets Nothing to See Here. Is it Sheets or Sheets?
It's shit. So it's supposed to be, it's a
Okay.
great show and it's supposed to be
Okay. See, I got it
cheeky
right.
like that. Yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
blame that on the tequila. Schitt's Creek meets Nothing to See Here. How did you come up with this glorious offbeat mashup of family drama and the magical realism?
Well, I wanted to do a family drama, but I wanted some lightheartedness
Mm-hmm.
to it. And I wanted to throw in just that. I love a book when there's just one thing that's off. It's not a whole world. It's not a fantasy world where
Yeah.
people have weird names and there's, people are flying and there's dragon. Like I wanted there's to be one thing that's off that like people acknowledge, okay, this is a real thing. I mean, her family doesn't always acknowledge it, but it's that one thing that I don't know. I just wanted to have fun with that piece of it and have it symbolize something more. And I like animals, so I figured
Oh, that
when
was a
and it
good
was fun
fit.
to research all these different kinds of like, let me find some weird animals.
That was my next question. Like, when you were researching the animals, did you have a hard time selecting the ones that you would ultimately use? And which ones did it make it that even to this day, you're kind of sad that you didn't bring them along for the ride?
I think I got all of the animals and I wanted to, even if it's just a mention, because sometimes it's just a passing mention saying like, oh, there was a mongoose in my book bag or something, and there
Yeah.
isn't a huge scene around it. But I think I slipped one in. You know, I gave the stink badger to somebody else. That's not Gabby. So,
Okay.
that guy was fun. And then I think she mentions a swamp rabbit. And, so at least mention some of the ones I thought were kind of funny.
Nice. Wonderful. So the syndrome, the Portum Bestia, is such a fun, bizarre twist. How did the idea of exotic animals become your choice for the emotional omens? And were there other options that you had considered using other than this?
No, that's really the only one. And then I figured, well, the exotic gives you another hurdle that you have to jump, versus a dog or a cat or something
Yeah.
where you could keep it, or you could, don't like give it to a shelter or something, it's
Uh-huh.
kind of hard. And she has a big heart. She's not going to just try to, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, you'll just have to put the animal down. She's like, I'm not doing that. I need to figure out a way to humanely treat these
Yeah.
animals.
Nice. What did your family say as you were writing this particular book in terms of the animal elements to it?
They were, of course, they always get nervous if I do anything that's family dynamics because they don't want to,
Don't
they
talk
don't
about
want
us.
to, yeah. So they're always like, oh, so, and even my nephew, when he saw the cover, he's a teenager. He's like, he asked his mom, is Darling Beast supposed to be us? Like, does that mean us? I'm like, why? Why, Will? Do you think you're a beast? Do tell me more. Um, so they get a little bit nervous, but I think, they're very supportive. So they're like, oh, that sounds fun. That's very original. So they thought it was funny. They just get more nervous about the family aspect.
Yes, don't talk about us. That's great. Talking about the family aspect, the Gunn siblings are a lot. We've got flawed, funny, and fabulous. Which of the three gave you the most joy and or the most grief to write?
Well, Ozzy was fun to write because he was just, even though he has the darkest past, arguably of
Mhm.
the three, he his kind of motto is like, well, people think I'm dumb. Again, that narrative,
Yeah.
and they think I'm a fun, guy that's ready to go out all the time. So he just kind of lives that up, and so he was fun. But he has a big heart. So he plays the like, kind of douchebag guy, but he has a big heart. And Talia was tough because she was probably the hardest because she's a bit prickly. She has a lot of issues with like the fact that she feels a little separate because Gabby
Mhm.
and Audrey are closer in age. She's much older. She knew their mom has passed away. She knew the mom much better. They were much younger. And so she gets kind of prickly and she's more uptight. She's the only one that has like a real, a quote unquote real career. She's a lawyer, so she's a bit more, she's like an older sister. So
Mhm.
she was a bit tougher to write, but Ozzy was fun. And then Gabby was just pretty easy for me to write because I don't know, it was easy to get in her head, I would say.
Yeah, I like that. The novel plays with wealth, as we discussed, image, and legacy. What were you hoping readers would feel or question as the siblings are forced to confront their privileges as well as their pain?
Well, for Gabby, for example, she's always been like, she runs an experimental theater. She's not, whereas Ozzy's buying big apartments and he's very fancy and flashy and taking jets. She's like, I am very low key. I live on my farm. I have my theater. But she's forced to confront like you said, okay, but it's easy to play, a theater girl when you don't have to worry about money,
Yeah.
and so she never has really, so it's the less obvious things. You can think that you're not flashy and I don't care about jets and all of this, but like dig a little deeper, you're still not, you're
Yeah.
still benefiting from that, and she definitely confronts that.
Nice. I like that. Let's talk about the fun factor. How did you balance laugh out loud moments with the deeper themes of grief, mental health, and of course, reconnection?
I just That's kind of the way I write, and I guess how I operate. And all my books have like a humor element, even a World War II book. There's, maybe it's a coping mechanism, I don't know.
Mhm.
But I've always lace the laughter in with the hard stuff, and I always like having a little bit of humor in my work. So I think it's a nice balance sometimes. And sometimes the absurd can be something that's really dark
Yes.
and you can laugh for, I was just watching a documentary and it was Mariska Hargitay, and she explored and found her real father, and she's meeting
Yes.
him, and and she's saying, "Oh, her father, he's saying, oh, I wish I could have said one last thing to your dad before he passed." And then his other daughter goes, "Well, you're 89, you can tell him soon enough." And it was hilarious. Like, I love that, and everybody's laughing, it's like, dark, but also true, but funny. And I love that kind of balance.
Now, of your siblings, do you have siblings or are you the only child?
Yeah. So we have the same dynamic, two sisters and a brother. And I'm the oldest, and then my brother's the middle, and my sister's the youngest.
Now, did you lean into comedy more as a child growing up? Was that your safe space to land when things got wacky, as you know, just as they do with adolescents and such?
I think my whole family that was that way. Even my parents were kind of teasers a bit, they would tease you and things like
Ah,
that. So I definitely, and my dad's funny. I mean, both my parents are funny. My dad's intentionally funny, my mom less, unintentionally funny. But there was a lot of humor in our house, and you were kind of expected, for better or for worse, to laugh things off. M- You know,
yeah.
that can come back to haunt you, right? If you're not dealing with it and laughing it off. But we just kind of grew up that way, and it's just funny because I'll be with my in-laws or something, and it's a different, and y'all tease somebody, and they kind of look at me like,
They look
"Wow,"
at you like you're crazy. Yes. Oh, you're
and it's
mean.
yeah, it's that dynamic that I'm so used to from my family.
Yes. We have a video of my daughters. They're 36 and 38 now, and they were at Christmas, and it starts off like at my mother's house, right? And the
Mhm.
noise level is insane, and you see gift wrapping paper being thrown, and the kids are snatching gifts from each other, and it just seems like it is a scene from out of a movie. And
Mhm.
then it goes to like the white noise, and then we're in my husband's mother's house, and the girls are sitting there very pious, and they take
Proper.
open the tape very nicely to where the paper could be reused, and they're like, thank you, grandmother. thank you, grandfather. And they put
Oh,
the
that
gift
is
to the
funny. Yeah,
side and then they open the next one. They're like, thank you, grandmother. Thank you, grandfather. And they're like,
that's funny. Yeah.
so we
Yeah, it's
understand it.
crazy how you can have that dichotomy.
So the family secrets and chaos keep the story moving. Was there ever a scene that even you didn't see coming until you wrote it?
I'm trying to think about that. The hot air balloon scene came out of nowhere. I'm like, it's a very California thing. And so I decided to have a bit of a dramatic scene
Uh-huh.
with the hot air balloon.
Now, are you a plotter to where you plot out absolutely everything and then go back and fill in with dialogue and additional information? Or are you the proverbial pantser that you kind of have an idea, you know where you're going, but you don't see it unfold until you get to pecking?
I'm sort of maybe I definitely have an overall plot, but it's not super detailed. So I'll have like major beats to hit. Sometimes I know exactly the ending. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure. I'll see. Hopefully I can figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in between. So maybe I would say, half the scenes I plotted out in advance and maybe half came about organically as I was
Okay.
writing.
Were there scenes that didn't make the final cut that as they had to be deleted, you just kind of had this memorial service for them as it got cut?
Not really. I mean, we did cut it back quite a lot because they wanted it a certain word count and it was a bit longer. But I don't know. I like editing, and I never feel bad about what I cut.
Oh, that's
Unless it was a
healthy.
whole story. But even that's never happened because they've had in past books they've had me cut like a whole point of view character or something. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I like cutting. I feel like accomplished. Like, oh, I cut 1,000 words today. Or what? So for me,
Nice.
I like trimming it up. So it feels good, and I feel like. I mean, it's hard because you think, oh, I just cut the scene, but then you're like, oh, but
It affects the
it
next scene.
yeah, and everything you're like, okay, well, at some point someone needs to mention this, so it's hard in that way. But I don't know, when I have to cut stuff, and I've had to cut some major because I had one book that we were going to do two books and we decided to make it one, but like I've had to cut a lot, and I don't know, I enjoy it. It does not bother me at all.
I like that. Very healthy outlook. I'm gonna have to adapt that. So if your book was turned into a limited series, which actor would you cast as the family fixer, and who would be the most challenging animal cameo to pull off?
Well, the cassowary at the end, he would be, a very dangerous bird. He would be hard to pull off. It's like I said, the only really person I could picture easily is Gabby as Daisy Edgar Jones.
Yeah,
I picture Talia being very sharp edge, like very hard features, like pointy nose, strong
yeah,
cheekbones,
yeah.
and the dad, the slicked back gray hair. Trying to think of someone good.
Ooh,
Kind of like looks like Gavin Newsom, maybe. I don't know.
that's a good choice. I was thinking like a younger Robert De Niro too. Like it'll have to be back in
Yeah.
his early days. With Darling Beast under your belt, what's one lesson you've learned from this book that will carry you into any future projects?
That's a good question. I don't know. That's tough to say. I guess just I still like doing research. That's one thing I love about historical fiction.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I spend so much time looking at animals and looking at other pieces of research. There's a whole thread about like the housing problem in California and researching that. So I did find that like I'm like, well, this will be easier because I'm not doing all this heavy, heavy, heavy historical research. But I love doing the research. So, it's like, well, whatever I write, I mean, it could be contemporary, it doesn't matter, but it
Uh-huh.
needs to have research for sure.
How do you balance as a researcher? Because oftentimes that's what trips up a lot of authors. They
Mhm.
get caught in the weeds and they go down these rabbit
Oh,
trails
yes.
and they get stuck and they use it then as a crutch, as an excuse for
Oh,
not
it's a great
jumping back
excuse.
in.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
It's a great
now
excuse.
are you naturally a researcher in that you're inquisitive and you're that were you that child that just had to know, or did you grow into that skill and it carries you in your creative space?
Well, I've always been a researcher, but I've definitely learned over my 8 books, how to be better at it. Because, like you said, if you do too much, if I would, my error at the beginning would be I would do, earlier in my career, I would do too much at the
Yeah.
beginning. And then you're like, this is such a cool fact. I need to like cram this in
Yes.
here, even though it doesn't have anything to do and it's not moving the plot. And you're like, great, I'm glad you know that, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And also, I would get so tied in, especially because I write historical fiction. So you can fudge the date a little, I'd be like, well, I had one book about the Kennedys, and I'm like, well, I can't figure out what JFK was doing on this date. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not writing a biography. You can have him be in New York on that date. So my thing has always been it can be plausible what I'm writing. It needs to be plausible. I'm not going to give someone
Yeah.
something that didn't really happen, but also like if someone comes back and says, actually, I'll be like, okay, good job. So I learned
Yay.
to do more of a bare minimum research at the beginning, enough to be dangerous, enough to know, enough to like get a frame of reference. And I've gotten much better about like if I'm going through and I need to know like what would somebody wear, and are there do zippers exist in
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
time period, or all of that to like bracket it and go back later. And then I found that, all the different iterations, like if I send it to my editor, I can do more research. So I've learned to really do the research as I'm writing. I'll do more research as I'm writing, and then I'll do once I turn it in a first draft, I'll do more, and then
Hmm.
like, okay, I need this. Like, I don't like that's a cool fact, but I don't really need to
Yeah.
know that. And it keeps it because before, if you do too much at the beginning, you're disorganized. So
Yeah.
you're like,
It's a dump. It's a, what do they call it? A data dump? Yeah.
yeah. And I would try to organize it, but still, it's going in all these directions. And so you're like, okay, so it's almost like you already have the outline, which is the book, to put your research into. So I've
Uh,
gotten much better about that, much better.
nice. Where are the listeners able to become a fan of yours and to connect with you? Are you on the socials? You have a website?
I have a website, michellegable.com, and I'm on the socials at mgablewriter.
Nice. What's next for you? Do you see yourself staying more in the this type of a literary space, or are you ready to run back to your historical fiction? You're like, no, I need to come back.
The one I'm working on one right now, which I'm not quite ready to talk about, but that is contemporary. But I could see myself maybe going back to this. It would depend. Like I just
Mhm.
would need to find the right story, the right hook for that.
Nice. We've come to the part of our show where I've called, what is it called? I keep changing the name. Last call, one for the road, anything that has to do with alcohol. I hope you've seen a trend, Miss Water drinker. So, and it's the few questions that are designed for not for you to have to think so hard, but
Okay.
maybe one may make you like pause. But the it's true or false, some surprises, and then some off the page fun.
Okay.
And as I tell the children, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. So the first one is two true, one false. Well, I'm going to give you a few seconds to think of this one because this is the only one where you do have to think. I want you to give us three facts about you, but two are true and one is a dazzling lie. And I will try to figure out which one is the fib.
Oh, geez. Okay. Um, a dazzling lie. Well, that's tough.
So two true,
Um,
one false.
um, okay. I have two daughters. I've ghostwritten a book, and I used to have a forklift driving license.
Two daughters. So you told me, oh, was I paying attention? Yes, I think you do have the two daughters and one son because you said it's the same as your family dynamics and the
No,
dynamics of
that's my siblings. I'm
the
just saying, not
siblings.
my.
Okay. But yours, and I think you said yours was the same as the guns, or I may have gotten that wrong. But hold on. The forklift thing, you look like you should be able to drive ride a forklift. And the other one was, what was the other one?
I've ghostwritten a book.
Ghostwritten. I bet you could if you haven't. Because I can see you writing something that you're not tied to. Okay, so I'm gonna go with the first one, the children's one as
Nope, I
false.
have two daughters. The false one is the ghostwritten a book.
Okay. What's something your readers would be surprised to learn about you that hasn't made it into your author bio yet?
Oh, geez. The forklift driving license. Um, I'm a card-carrying member of the Chickasaw Nation. Like I can vote in the elections,
Oh,
so
wow.
my Native American heritage. So
Very nice. Very nice. That's a good surprise. What animal would show up right before one of your best creative breakthroughs?
hopefully Jinda, the kind of dog I have.
Nice.
Well, one of my dogs recently passed away, so I would hope that dog showed up.
Oh, what's the dog's name?
Winnie.
Winnie. Oh, that would be sweet. What's a line or scene from Darling Beast that made you laugh out loud as you wrote it, or secretly you reread it just for the fun of it?
There's one scene where there's like chaos and there's like they find poop in the offices on the floor because Gabby's had one of her flares, and the stepmother Eustania, who is this Eastern European woman who's very harsh, she's yelling about why is there poop here, and she says, oh, there's a Jindo in the book, and she's like, oh, it's that Jibbo, and she calls it the wrong name. I don't know, it made me laugh, and then one of my daughters read it and she thought it was funny too. So
Oh, nice. And the last question. If the Gunn family had a group text, what would the name of the thread be, and who's most likely to mute the whole thing?
Gabby would definitely mute the whole thing and not deal with it until later, or not at all. I think that Talia would start it and she would probably name it something very boring, like the Gun Family Chat. She would not have a clever name. And then Ozzy would keep trying to do something funny and then she would change the name back.
Nice. Oh, thank you so much. Michelle, this was a lot of fun.
It was super fun. Thank you for having me.
You are
And this wraps
welcome.
up another episode of On the Air with Florenza. You may follow me on all social media platforms under Florenza Lee or via my website at florenza.org. Until next time, cheers.